Ho, 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 ho. Fake carrots. Fake fruit. Fake. Fake grapefruits. Fake. Liar! You liar!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Johnny.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. It is that kind of show, folks. That kind of show. That kind of day. It is a wicked, wicked Wednesday. I've been talking about World War III with you guys for, I don't know, what, the last 3 days, especially when I said, that's it. All joking aside, all levity aside, all satire aside, they're really taking some big, big, big steps. I've been covering the bombings in Russia on their military bases, covering Putin and what he's talking about. We got some new computer controls here in the office. So when I get scared, you guys will know it because I'm going to give you the extreme close-up, whoa! Oh, okay. Anyways, you can thank Uman for giving me that tool. Moving on. Let's get into it. Let's get into it, folks. There's some big things going on. What is happening in America, folks, is also going on around the world. There is a complete takeover of the Nintendo system, folks. The Nintendo system. Down in Brazil, they just had their Nintendo games. And the conservative political party in Brazil, their version of, the Libertarian Republicans, they went all the way to the European people, right? They went to the, a European organization. They didn't want to come to the United States and say, we've had problems with our Nintendo games. You should take a look at it because what do we have here? We have the Democrats stealing the Nintendo results and the Republicans just letting it happen. So in an effort to try and get some kind of international recognition of the problem, they went to the league, they went to Europe. The Brazilian Conservative League went to Europe to catalog, to document the Supreme Court abuse and Nintendo manipulation. I got to be very careful, very careful. And they went and talked to the Alternative for Deutschland. That would be the Libertarian Freedom Party in Germany. Went to the vice speaker, right, to complain. Beatrix von Storch, that's a hell of a name, and asked for an international investigation. There is some big shit going down, folks. We are not the only ones suffering from this. Please be aware. We are right now in the middle of a giant takeover of the government systems in the West, in North America, South America, Europe, and they're all aimed against, you got it, Russia and that. They're starting World War III right now. It is unbelievable, but it's believable. It's believable. So, where do I want to start and go next with this? This is beautiful. I just mentioned North America, South America, Europe, right? In Peru, is it Peru or Chile wants to invade Brazil with their communist forces. And in Peru, their Marxist president, Pedro Castillo, he is setting the stage for a dramatic, total communist takeover there. He has dissolved Congress. right? Who else did that in history? Anyone? Ooh, man, is there anyone in the comments right now live? And we've got a great live audience from thepreparedmind.club and the subscribestar.com. Who in history made themselves the dictator and then dismissed Congress forever? I'm going to hum the fake Jeopardy music so I don't get a strike for infringing someone's copyright material. Da 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 da. Ba, ba, da, ba, ba. Mikey G says, Hitler, you are the man, brother. You nailed it. Hitler, right? They had the Reichstag fire. Congress literally burned with flames. And Hitler said, you know what? We don't need you anymore. It's cool. We'll just run everything right here from the dictator command. Well, down in Peru, they've done the same thing. They've done the same thing. I would love to bring Uman on screen right now. Just kidding, Uman. I know you're eating snacks and stuff. He had like a snack cracker. He's going, and he's like, no. Right, good stuff. Love you, man. I just can't help myself. Anyways, in Peru, President Pedro Castillo has said, no more Congress, not needed. And this was done just a few hours before they were going to vote to impeach him. You want to talk about a true socialist scumbag, Democrat, communist move? Right now, up here in the United States of America, there are not enough votes in the Senate to convict Joe Gigi scumbag Biden if he gets impeached. So he can allow himself to be impeached and he won't be removed from office. But down there in Peru, their rules may be a little different. So let me try this one again. Socialist scumbag, Democrat, communist Pedro Castillo, he didn't have much choice to preserve his dictatorial potential. Yeah, he moved into a dictatorial move. Unbelievable, folks. On the world stage, what is going on? Are you prepared? You know, I don't like sounding the alarm like Chicken Little. I'm more like Chicken Big. But we've got problems. I've been documenting what's going on with Russia a little more closely along the nuclear front. And just in time, folks, just in time for this, Putin comes to the microphone and talks. And he says the risk of nuclear war is rising. And that, hey, the Ukraine operation, it's going to be a long process. So what Putin did, folks, is he got to the nuclear discussion, nuclear war, World War III. He addressed topics related to the special military operation in Ukraine and talked about his future plans for a broader mobilization and the deployment of their nuclear assets. Understand this closely. This morning, Zero Dark 30, I talked about Russia on its east coast, the far east coast, which is, folks, on the map, it's that far north of Japan. It is right there. That far north of Japan. They moved their high-tech missile systems right offshore. When they secure that island chain that comes off of the mainland Russia, guess what? Where do you think they're going to deploy their mobile nuclear assets? Think about it, folks. Think about it. Now, Putin kind of struck out, whipped on the U.S. and NATO. And he said, quote, Russia does not have tactical nuclear weapons in other countries, unlike the U.S. government, meaning Russia's nukes are all on Russian soil, whereas America has their nukes all over the planet. So yes, the U.S. government, NATO, and the European Union are wildly hypocritical in any effort to criticize Putin over what he does and where he keeps his nukes. So does this mean he's going to deploy them all over Russia? Probably. Does this mean he could deploy them to other Russian allies? I don't know. Everything is wildly crazy, folks. Remember, before World War I and before World War II, before then, countries took sides. It didn't happen in a day. Once again, it was a process by which nations chose sides. They had to choose between economic alliances and military alliances. But they chose sides before everyone started slugging it out. And I ought to, in this funny Christmas season, read the old joke. And the old joke was making World War I and World War II sound like what happens at a bar fight. I may just have to read those again because it really cuts down and shows, who is who and who's kicking whose ass and why and where, etc. Now, Putin restated Russia's defensive nuclear, shall we say, policy. And he made it very clear that nuclear weapons would be considered a response to an attack on Russian territory. Territory, folks, like bombing a Russian airbase with drones or sabotage or spies. An attack on Russian territory, folks. Nuclear weapons could be considered as a response. Understand how close we could be. And this is a quote on Putin. Using all available means. What does that mean? Submarine launch? Hypersonic missile with nuclear weapon tip? The West is playing with fire, and Putin, folks, I'm not going to call him a loose cannon. I'm not going to say that Putin is like, a Kim Jong-un up in North Korea. I'm not going to say that. But he is not to be screwed with. This guy rides a bear shirtless through the Russian wilderness. Fucking Russians, they don't think quite like us. They think and they have a different process that they go through in their head. Up in Washington, D.C., the process is no longer intelligent and intellectual. It's emotionally based, agenda-based, false reality that they built. That's why we're seeing this climate change nonsense. And they're like, climate change? We're going to get taxed on the sun? We're going to get taxed on solar cycles? We're going to get taxed on space weather? And that'll solve the problem? Anyways, Putin continued. Let me finish out what he had to say. As he talked about Russian territory being attacked, defending it, their nuclear weapons, etc. He said, we will do this by various ways and means. First of all, of course, we will focus on peaceful means. But if nothing else remains, we will defend ourselves with all the means at our disposal. What do you think that means for you and I, folks? We're just cannon fodder for the jackasses in D.C. and the Pentagon. They couldn't give a shit about you and I. They couldn't. They will go down in their little bunkers and sweat it out and wait for the nuclear cloud to settle everywhere. They don't give a flying fuck about us when it all comes down to it. So we need to consider this as a very real potential. I hope you have potassium iodide pills. Jolene, Ooman, someone should know where to get potassium iodide. You can get it on Amazon. And what that does is it protects your thyroid from bringing in radioactive or nuclear, if you will, potassium and storing it. It protects us from getting thyroid cancer and dying. But, there's the other one that's hard to find protection from is the trying to find SPF 5 million for a nuclear strike that you're exposed to. Crazy stuff, folks. Now, something else I've been talking about. And I've heard people go, John, that's a conspiracy theory, man. What are you talking about? Neofeudalism, folks, is what I've been talking about. These aristocratic-minded assholes that now call themselves the oligarchs or the super rich or the elites. I don't know what they call themselves. The Illuminati. These bunch of evil bastards out there. Understand who they are. They've been threatening enough that 20 years ago, I heard the term neo-feudalism tossed out there with respect to the way that people are treated by the government. Well, and the government is run by these super elites, so they will be the aristocrats of the neo-feudal state. They can travel. They can buy goods. They can sell whatever they want. They can remain rich and aloof and above the law. But the peons, the pissants, people like me and you, we're going to be the feudal servants, the slaves. In Oxfordshire, England, the county council is considering restrictions on residents' travel, quote, for the planet. In other words, they want folks to use climate change, climate crisis, global warming, global cooling. We've got to save the world, carbon reduction. That's going to be their excuse for saying, you're just not allowed to travel. Sorry, not going to do it. Ain't going to happen. Understanding these people, folks, is going to be key to being prepared so that when they spring this shit on us, and they're going to continue to do so, you understand who you are, where you're at, what your rights are, what restrictions the government truly has, and what our responsibilities are, not only to ourselves and our children and offspring, but also to our ancestors. I look back in time and I think about my ancestors who left Germany, left Europe, came here to America for freedom. And then when they got here, they were visited by King George the Jackass. And they dealt with the 1776 fallout. An entire generation of my family was wiped off the books. Kind of hard to do genealogy when let's see, every church is burned. Right? Family records, government records, everything destroyed. That's what the aristocrats do, is they just burn everyone, literally, scorched earth, so that you are removed from who you are and where you are and what you are. It happened in Europe as well to my family. That's what they do, so that you don't know who you are, what your family history is, where you came from. And then they can label you. You become theirs, and they can tell you who you are. A big example of this are the African Americans who are like, who are we? Where did we come from exactly? We don't know. And it pisses them off. At least the ones that I've talked to about it. It pisses them off because, right, they were captured. Their ancestors were captured in Africa in battles, tribal battles, war, and then sold to the Dutch, and the Dutch transported them up here. And no one likes to talk about this colorful history here. But yeah, they don't know. How can they know? And it's terrible to do to human beings, but governments do it intentionally. It's not just done to slaves, it's done to everybody. To be a serf is to be a servant, is to be a slave. And that's what these pricks are pushing for. And they're trying to introduce it publicly. And then use the climate as the excuse for making you a slave. Shit hitting the fan, folks. They said, hey, government has extreme emergency power and authority. So we can tell you what to do in case someone catches the cold. That's too dangerous. We can't have that out there. So yeah, they can tell us what to do, right? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, let's go back to Brazil. I know that I've got another 10 minutes plus on my side. So get your questions down below for Uman and for Jolene. But I'm going to dive back down into Brazil. What's continuing to happen down there is the Brazilian military is fighting against the communist-supporting guerrilla fighters, drug gangs, drug lords, etc. They're in firefights, folks. In other words, Brazil is entering into an SHTF Mad Max partisan conflict. It is not the government against the people. It is the government military against the government supporting commies. Right? What better way to control a government? Why just be the drug lord when you can be the drug lord that owns the government? This isn't the first time this has happened, folks, in the world. Go back and look at Chinese history where the British showed up in China. Right? And you got things like the Boxer Rebellion. And you have the beginnings of the East India Trading Company. That would be the English company that was involved in everything shall I say, underhanded and dirty and shitty. It was part of the British colonization technique. Anyways, they're fighting down there, folks. And it sounds to me like in Brazil, the military doesn't want to fall under the command of a communist who is being dictated to by drug lords. How about that? A communist dictator who is being dictated to by communist drug lords who then tell their military, the military's like, nah, you're not doing that here. And like I said, meanwhile, Brazilian delegates have gone to Europe to complain and say, we need you to look at this. We need you to look at this. We need you to look at what is going on. Sounds a lot like America in the 1770s, where America was like, world, look at us. Look at what's going on. And they sent delegates to England to try and stop it. And they sent delegates to Europe. And so Benjamin Franklin not only went to England, folks, but he went to France. And they got allies there to try and help with the problems. And ultimately, they ended up, that's right, with the American Revolution. World War III, revolution, hostile takeovers, uncompromising and immoral attempts at destroying this country. Folks, we're here right now. We're in that room. And it's not going to take one day. You may say, well, that's not happening here, John. When it starts to happen, enough that you notice it, what are you going to do? You don't think the election issues that have come up, you don't think they're worthy of your consideration? Or do you? As part of a takeover of the Nintendo system. How do you think they took control of Germany away from the people and gave it to Hitler and the Nazis? He was elected chancellor, folks. Hitler didn't come in with a machine gun and just start shooting people. That came later. They came in, they got elected in, they got themselves elected a whole lot all over Europe. The Nazis, all over Germany, I should say. And who do you think was funding the Nazi party? Oh, yeah. International business cartels. Today's version of George Soros was active in Germany, and they were British and they were American. That's right. Financial and corporate elites sponsoring and funding Adolf Hitler and his party so that they could get elected by spending a lot of money on the elections in the Weimar Republic until it became controlled enough by the Nazi party that they had the Reichstag fire and Hitler declared himself chancellor. And well, practically, in terms of world history, the next day, the Jews were invited to get on trains and go for a little ride. It takes time. It takes years. But once they do it, it's hard to turn them back. Near impossible. And here we are, folks. We're here. And remember this. Even though Hitler took control of Germany in the early 1930s, and World War II did not start until 1941, in 1938, Hitler was Time's Man of the Year. That's right. Time's Man of the Year was Adolf Hitler. Just 3 years before he started World War III. Who is this year's Man of the Year or Person of the Year? Because we don't want to insult the genders. Take a wild freaking guess. Oh, we know who it is. We know. We know who it is. It's Ukraine's President and Savior Zelensky, the Time magazine Person of the Year. You know, Barack Hussein Barry-Soetoro Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize after bombing the shit out of a bunch of people and starting wars. Unbelievable. The thinking of these people in charge, folks. I don't trust them, and I'm getting prepared for them. Chance favors the prepared mind. You've got to know where this leads. And I hate to sound like I'm on my high horse or that, I'm beating this one to death, but I can't help it. I really can't help it because of what these people have done and continue to do. All right. Now I'm going to change gears with you again. Oh, by the way, there was another shooting in a Walmart, this time in Georgia. One person's injured. Several have been detained by the government, right? What is going on with Walmarts? Are they so safe? Right? And the shooting was just outside a Cobb County Walmart. Police were on the scene within half an hour or less, right? It's, you never get a straight story on that. Two groups that knew each other had a disagreement. What is that? Two groups? Is that gangs? Is this two groups of government organizations? I don't know. But, you know, Walmarts are sounding less and less like a place that I want to go under any circumstance. They're crazy. Absolutely crazy. Okay. We're gonna slow it down a little bit here. We're gonna take it back a notch. We got Walmart, we got Target, you got TJ Maxx, you got Safeway, you got Albertsons, you got Kroger's. Well, Kroger, right? Mega superstore, billions of dollars worth of stuff are in Washington, D.C. complaining. What they're trying to do is push the government to allow a merger between Albertsons and Kroger. So the CEO kind of got an earful from Senator Cotton. And I don't think Senator Cotton was as impolite as he should have been. He was very polite. But there is an all-out anti-freedom war by the left. And these stores have been screwing us. And then they go to the government for help. So let me read to you what is going on the political side of things. It's public, but this attitude needs to prevail. We need to support our politicians in Washington, even though we don't trust them, even though we don't really like them, even though we think they're full of shit, even though we think and believe that half of them or more are selling us out. We still need to pressure them, because when the straw finally breaks the camel's back, we need to be able to tell them, we told you so. We took every action we could to encourage you to do the right thing. But the Declaration of Independence says we have the right. We have inalienable rights, and we have the right to throw off a government which is not serving us. When a government becomes abusive and tyrannical, the people have a right to dissolve it. And folks, dissolving it means using a lot of freedom seeds and fertilizer. So Senator Cotton says to this CEO jackass of woke Kroger, he says, the situation reminds me a little bit of the situation big tech companies found themselves in. They've come to Washington because they fear regulation from their Democratic friends or an action from the Biden administration, and they expect Republicans, who are traditionally more supportive of free enterprise, to come to their defense. I have cautioned them for years, if they silence conservatives and the center-right voters across the country, if they discriminate against them in their company, they probably shouldn't come and ask Republican senators to carry the water for them whenever their Democratic friends want to regulate them or block their mergers. So I've heard a line of questioning about that today, and I've read a lot about it in the news. This is what Senator Cotton said about Kroger and their whining and bitching and wanting favors while they've screwed America, the conservatives, the Americans, and made Kroger an anti-American, left-wing, Democrat, piece of shit woke store. He says, I'll say this. I'm sorry that's happening to you, but best of luck. In other words, go fuck yourself. Because that's all they've done, folks, is screw us over. Every single last one of these companies out here that sold us out, gone woke, and then complain when they can't make even more money on us. Yeah. Guess what time it is, folks? We started early. I've got a function to attend tonight. I've got to put on some clothes, got to leave the blessed bunker of joy and go out and do some, shall we say, I think there's some fundraising going on tonight out there. And I want to thank you guys because you have been funding this show, making sure the bills get paid, making sure that the scotch and the spam make it into the pantry. I want to thank you guys for that wholeheartedly. I know that times are getting tight. I know that people are scared and worried and things are not great in the world, and you have still found it within yourselves to sponsor and support this show so we can network, we can wake people up, we can get the word out, people can get prepared and educate themselves, right? With facts, absolute facts. It's no more guesswork. It's not maybe. They've been screwing us and they're trying to take our country from us. Wake up, America. And now it's time for the Q&A.
Are you ready?
And again, in honor of all you guys who have served, everyone who's supported, everyone that's in the fight, cheers. Oh, yeah. Very good. Nice. It's like mother's milk. All right. We got Uman. We got Jolene in the background. Let's get into some questions. Who wants to step up and raise awareness on a topic that you guys think is important, right? If you're on the preparedmind.club, if you're on subscribestar.com, you can join us daily for the Q&A and the monologue. You get to talk with everyone in the ultra polite comment section, and then you can ask questions. You can pop them up there, and then Uman took it down. And we got Chester, and he said, listened to Spreading Chaos from Zero Dark 30. Wondering when those weapons cause tremendous damage and we are blamed. I'm glad you caught that episode, Chester. That was another powerful message. The weapons that the United States government, that NATO, that Britain, that the European Union are supplying to Ukraine, some are being used against the Russians, and a lot of it, and who knows how much, because we can't get a true accounting of how much was sent, how much was received, and where the fuck it went. So yeah, those weapons are being used. And the leader of Nigeria said, hey, that shit's showing up in our country. That's Africa, folks. Africa. All right, do they need our weapons down in Africa to have, they got enough chaos and problems. What happens, right, when those weapons start being used in Romania, in the Czech Republic, in Greece, in Germany, France, Austria, Spain, right? Who's going to get the blame for that? Is it going to be Times Man of the Year, Voldemort Zelensky, the little light in the loafers, skinny jeans wearing entertainment puppet toy of the uber elite? You know, Zelensky? Is he going to get blamed for it, or is he going to say, wasn't me? Yeah, who do we blame? Who do we hold accountable? Are they being sold to terrorists? Are they being sold to, well, patriots in Europe who want to make their country safe? We don't know. What I have in mind is they're being sold to and through the black market. And whatever they can use to buy them, they're going to the highest bidder, and the first one with a handful of cash or a handful of drugs or a handful of gold or a handful of silver or a handful of whatever they've got that's worth trading for these weapons. I'm sure they're being sold at bargain basement prices. That's okay, because the government of the United States and the other governments that made these weapons, right, they paid top dollar, top tax dollar from you. Great topic. I wonder who's going to be blamed. Will it be Biden, Zelensky? I'll tell you exactly who's going to be blamed. Russia and Putin. Because if they hadn't done what they'd done, then none of this would have happened. If Putin had just laid down and let NATO and the United States roll nuclear weapons into Ukraine and start NATO bases there, then none of this would have happened. Would Washington, D.C. allow Russia to roll nuclear weapons across the river north of Vermont and New Hampshire. Put nuclear weapons in Toronto across the Great Lakes. No, they wouldn't. Would they like nuclear weapons stationed in Tijuana, just south of San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco? Not a fucking chance. No, they wouldn't want that. They wouldn't allow it. But, you know, here we are, folks. We're in that place now, that room, that world. All right. I tell you, just there's so much going on. And I think they're trying to keep us off guard, off balance. So Lamplighter checks in. Thank you, Jolene, for bringing this one to us. He says, perhaps the equipment was left in Afghanistan to disrupt the area to prevent pipelines from Russia to India bypassing the dollar. That's a very astute and interesting idea. We do have a lot of issues, right, down in that area of the world. You got India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, and then Iran. Right, that's the series of countries that line up along the Indian coastline, Indian Ocean coastline, that is. And yeah, what does India want? Well, they want cheap oil. So the pipeline from Russia to India doesn't go through Afghanistan, right? But that entire area brings a lot of questions. That entire area there is also, guess what? The new Silk Road highway train super system that China is trying to build to connect Europe to China on the land. And so if you've got war and tension in India and Pakistan, and Afghanistan is run by a bunch of crazy lunatic idiots, and then you got Iraq, which is run by a bunch of crazy lunatic idiots, and then you've got Iran, which is run by the Ayatollah Khomeini, the theological, that is, religious leader of the country. And then you move up to the Caucasus area. You got Syria. You've got the Armenian, Turkey. There's a lot of land to go through. So yeah, keep it destabilized. Keep them well armed with weapons and make things all the more tricky. Now, experience has shown and demonstrated that you can move oil through these corrupt, immoral, piece of shit countries, but you just have to pay the toll. I'm going to give you several examples. China will be able to build all their shit and go through this area. Russia will be able to lay their pipelines through these areas. In Nigeria, let's go back to Nigeria. Nigeria, folks, is a huge oil-producing member of OPEC. Bet you didn't know that. Well, bet you some of you didn't know that. The others of you know what the fuck's going on. So in Nigeria, they have a pipeline, and it starts here, and it goes this way. So on this end, they put in, let's just say, 1 million barrels of oil a day. And at this other end of the pipeline, at the end of the day, they take out 500,000 barrels of oil. Right? That doesn't work with the math. Let's up it to 2 million barrels of oil, and they're going to push that through the pipeline. And they come out at the other end with 1 million. The percentage goes up and down. But all along the way of that pipeline running through Nigeria, people have tapped it in a very literal sense and are sucking out the oil and selling it on the black market. I mean, how do you do that? You just walk up and cut a fucking hole in the side of the pipeline? I know there's ways to do it, folks. I've done hot tap on city water. I've seen it done with, believe it or not, natural gas lines, where you've got a gas line in the ground and they're like, I want that gas to go into that house over there. And so they just pop a line into it, start pulling off natural gas. Of course, that's the city doing it, and they're going to meter it and make money off it. But in Nigeria, they're just sucking it. Where else? You guessed it. If you said the Ukraine. That's right, Ukraine. They have pipelines running from Russia through Ukraine. And guess what? They steal that gas in Ukraine. And so Russia started saying, well, if we put in right? Let's say the equivalent of 100 million BTUs of energy a day, and we're only selling, right, 75 million BTUs of energy. Someone stole, 25% of that. And so now we put it in and you will pay full price. And we don't care what comes out the other end. You on the other end, you are responsible because Ukraine is stealing our gas. So yeah, once again, you can run things through these countries. You can make deals with warlords, but they're going to steal and they're going to take their cut, if you will. There's no free rides, folks. Shit is hit the fan and we're all going to pay. The question is, how comfortable will you be in the process, right? How comfortable. And to give you another example of this control stuff, folks, the White House today. The White House has the balls to say, we are not enabling or encouraging Ukraine to strike within Russia. Right? The US and Europe can say, we're not enabling or encouraging or allowing Ukraine to steal Russian gas. If the US government can't control Ukraine, if NATO can't control Ukraine, if Ukraine won't listen to common sense, international law, decency, or anything else, why the fuck would you let them into NATO or the European Union? Why? Right? Unbelievable what is happening. It's completely unbelievable. Okay, let us move on. Time is of the essence. Time is here. Okay. I love this. Jason Walker says, Scotch and spam. Gotta love you, Jarhead. Gotta love a Jarhead. I tell you what, I love the spam. I love the tuna. Hey, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love lobster and I love filet mignon. It's just I can't afford to eat it every meal. In fact, I can't really afford to eat it. But I tell you what, I love the Scotch, love the spam. Jason Walker says, in my time in the military, my time around Marines was the best. Gotta love those guys. Semper Fi. And Semper Fi to you, Jason. I don't know what branch you were in or if you were a private contractor working with them. The other day I met a retired captain. I talked about it a little bit the other day, and he was with Recon. He retired just before, so you can tell his age, just before I got in there. And I myself was not Recon. Actually, at that time, the unit was called Force Recon, and they were out of Camp Delmar down there off of Pendleton. It was on the ocean side of I-5, Camp Delmar. And Force Recon was headquartered out of theirs. And those guys, I tell you, we drank an awful lot of beer. So for me, anyways, those guys are my heroes, Recon. Just if you've ever trusted someone with your life, put yourself in a weird situation, or you get put in a weird situation, you gain an appreciation for those that are good versus those that are just there and they'll sell you out the moment they have an emotional fit or something better comes along, right? It's incredible, right? These guys will stand by you. The Army, the Marines, the Navy, and even the Air Force, right? I've heard they've got some good people in there. And they catch a lot of shit, folks. They do. And also the Coast Guard. Anyways, I was on a vessel probably 7 months ago, and they got boarded by the Coast Guard. It was some funny shit. They jump on board. They say, we're boarding you. And, they board the ship or the vessel, if you will. And they announce themselves and what they're doing. And, after the initial, shall we say, insurance that there's not going to be violence, then you just start sharing sea stories with them and having some fun. The military are very interesting people, folks. I don't trust the woke ones. That's for fucking sure. And we've got a lot of trouble on our hands. We've got a lot of trouble coming. even with our military, certainly with our law enforcement, and especially with our fucking politicians who are greasing themselves, feathering their own nests, and screwing us over. They don't realize that the money they steal isn't going to do them a bit of good when the people find out who they are and where they're hiding. There'll be no way to buy themselves out of trouble. Because, yeah, money that is ill-gotten doesn't go as far as they think it should. All right, let's do this. Let's move on with some more questions. Let's see what we want to talk about. We got Chester. He says, never thought I would be living in the United States of America during a transition into socialism. The commies advanced so slowly. No one saw them gaining their current footholds, political, commerce, and banking. Now, offshore manufacture of just about all household items, no realistic jobs for everyday Americans, and we're paid in inflation-destructed currency. I agree, right? It says we work hard and still can't afford what you really need. You said a mouthful there, man. I've watched socialism my whole life. You know, I noticed when I was in 6th grade, 12 years old, I noticed the teachers talking about Britain, England, and talked about them having a socialist system. And then we talked about how bad communism was. And the Soviet Union is bad, and we're in the Cold War. Just starting to learn about world politics. Just starting. And I said, teacher, and his name was Kalanico, Mark Kalanico. He was a great teacher. I appreciated him a lot at the time. I was a pain in the ass student in 6th grade. I enjoyed getting my name in the board and getting in trouble. It was a lot of fun. But Mark Kalanico, and he said, he said the Soviet Union, the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And I remember asking him, I said, isn't the Soviet Union socialist? And isn't England socialist? And the answer to those questions was yes. I said, then why is one communist and one is socialist and one is acceptable and one is not? And one we're at peace with and they're allies and the other is at war with us. And the answer was not satisfying, coming from my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Kalanico. Very nice guy. How do you explain that, even today, that it's okay to have socialist Europe, but formerly Soviet socialist Russia's the bad, evil ones? You see, it doesn't have to do with political systems. It has to do with ideology and who's running the system. You know, the true ideology, folks, is to gain power for self and for government. I was aware very early that socialists are communists because of the name that the Soviets chose, and that incrementally they were moving, because then I was taught about American politics. Right. And later I learned in the early 90s, we'll just fast forward a bit, that that JFK, the esteemed Democrat president who got shot in the head, had his brains blown all over while his wife, the back of the car, anyone standing within bullet shot. His policies as a Democrat in the early 1960s would be considered radical conservative ideas by today's standards. In other words, that's how far to the socialist side the Democrats have gone. They called themselves liberals in the 70s. They called themselves progressives into the 80s. They wanted to call themselves anything but socialists and communists, because the world knows that socialist is communist. And the only difference between a socialist and a communist is that the communist is in a big fucking hurry, meaning they'll turn tanks on you. Whereas socialism is very slow and very creeping, takes its time. And they've taken my entire life, folks, to get from they were in 1970, 52 years into the future. And that's where we're at now. They're pushing for socialism here. And they're threatening us with communism now. Are we supposed to go, oh, we want socialism or communist light? We want that. We don't want that bad social communism. We want just some nice light socialism. And what do they offer? They hold the carrot out. They got a carrot on a stick, and they're holding it out in front of everyone. Free healthcare, free money. Right? What do they want? You want time off from work that the business has to pay for. What do you want? Oh, free childcare. Right? Oh, you want your student loans forgiven. You want to be given a house you can live in by the government. Yeah, let's get into government housing, folks. You see how that works. Look at the projects of the 1960s, 70s in the United States of America. They're shitholes. Look at the building projects of the Soviet Union and Communist China, where they create cheap housing for the people. Government subsidized is what they call it. It's absolute garbage. That's what they want for us, me and you. That's what they want for us, the little people. The feudalistic serfs, servants, peasants, and pissants. All right, great topic to discuss. Jolene, who do we want to toss to the wolves next? It is Blue Core Devil. Good to see you, man. He says, has the American Legion gone woke? Just saw a post hosting a drag show. I'm a life member of the VFW, that's the Veterans of Foreign Wars, and DAV never will join the American Legion. There is so much pressure to accept these flaming fruitcake perverts in every facet of our lives. I am absolutely sick and tired of seeing the LGB crowd kissing on my TV. I turn on regular shows, folks, just to see what's out there. And there they are, right in your face. Two guys kissing. Oh, and it's an advertisement for anti-HIV medication. I mean, why don't they just come out and honestly say, well, I've been taking it in the ass for 5 years now, and now I have HIV, but I want to continue to do this gross, disgusting stuff with other hairy-butted men and not feel the pain of being diseased the rest of my life. So use product XYZ, right? Oh, let me kiss my boyfriend now on camera. That way you're convinced that you're watching the right. These people are sick and fucked up. And so, yeah, you're seeing it everywhere. Oh, let's have kids watch this. You know, let's groom up some kids. These are some sick people. And remember, if you're a normie, normal. Let's see, being normal is normal. Being normal is the vast majority of us. But to be normie is bad, wrong. You're a homophobic. No, folks, these gays are heterophobic. They can't allow anyone to be hetero without questioning it and insulting it and attacking it and punishing it. They're heterophobes. They're normophobes. And they're trying to push their demented, sick, fucked up way of life on the rest of America and the world through corporations, through civic organizations like the American Legion and the Moose Lodge and Elks Lodge and Lions Club and all these others, right? They're trying to push it. And if you come out against it, you come out of the closet as a normie and say something, they're going to try and shut you down. Right? You want to hold a protest against them? They'll send Antifa out there. Little black-clad jackasses and try and cause trouble. I still have not met one of these little, well, I haven't met one that is willing to stand up and do something mano to mano. They're chicken shits. They travel in groups. They'll threaten you, folks. And if they get a chance, if you turn your back on them, they'll probably club you with a brick. I've seen too many protests where someone just walking down the street, minding their own business, gets attacked by BLM or Antifa or some left-wing lunatic organization because they see a chance to create a victim. I've seen them attack women. I've seen them run down men. I've seen them even threaten and attack children in these videos. It is horrifying what these sick bastards want. And so, yeah, if the VFW is going to host drag shows, I'm not going to VFW. If I want to see a drag show, folks, I'll go to a drag bar. I don't need to see it in the school auditorium. I don't want to hear about it in the school auditorium. I don't want to see it at a school board meeting. I don't want to see it on my TV even. I don't want a show to be called The Drag Show and watch that. Who the fuck wants to watch that? Well, They're throwing it in everyone's faces and telling you if you don't accept it, then you're the bad person. All right, Jolene, I'm running out of time, and I know I'm getting long-winded. Not attacking, folks. I'm not attacking a special, protected, privileged group that can say whatever the fuck they want. I'm just talking about them. Mikey G says, we've already have nuclear power plants, ready-made dirty bombs everywhere. Low cost, highly effective saboteurs is a lot easier than missiles and bombers and satellites, SATs. Okay, nuclear power plants. Yeah. Getting depleted uranium from them is probably a lot harder than the average person understands. I think the best way these idiots can fuck everything up would be to hack into nuclear power plants and cause a meltdown, which creates too much pressure and could cause an explosion. And that is why these new small modular reactors and the ones they're designing and building now, they're incredible as far as safety goes. But yeah, the creating dirty bombs, a dirty bomb doesn't have to have a nuclear mushroom cloud. It just needs to spread nuclear waste everywhere. So depleted uranium is nuclear waste, right? It's a waste product that can't be used. In fact, well, except for some of the new nuclear reactors can actually burn up the rest of the nuclear waste and use it as fuel. So they're going to take care of that. But yeah, it remains a threat because it is low security. But I have a funny feeling that any of these idiots that get a hold of some spent uranium rods or other depleted uranium or nuclear waste, they're going to probably poison themselves and suffer a very painful, cancerous death. But that doesn't stop communists in the past. The other ways to hurt everyone is to cause a blackout. You don't need an EMP. You just need to have about a dozen shooters all over a state and start shooting up all of the transformers at power substations. They're even lower security to no security. And the damage is incredible, folks. But, wouldn't you think that these left-wing lunatics would say, hey, don't shoot those transformers. You're going to release toxic oils because the oil in those things is nasty. Release that out onto the ground. It'll get in the environment and pollute the streams and the fish. And don't you cause any problems at those nuclear power plants by getting that depleted uranium, because that can poison the fish and the birds and the deer and the bunnies and the hamsters and Richard Gere's gerbils. And it would be just terrible. Terrible. Right? But they don't give a fuck. They're willing and more than willing to cause all kinds of damage as long as they get their political cause satisfied. That's all they really care about. But they're going to use the environment as the excuse to get us there because they are a bunch of fucked up assholes. Right? They truly are. It's just, we've got to quit playing games with these people, folks. We've got to quit playing games with them. Right? For example, in the CDC, the director there, Rochelle Walensky, says that the flu shots are a, quote, very good match for this year's strains. Oh, so line right up. Hey, while I'm in there, can I get some depleted uranium injected in me? I mean, are we supposed to doubt the medical SHTF they've cast on us? Are we supposed to trust the science and listen to Antifa and BLM? Are we supposed to trust the CDC after what they did from 2020 till now? Right? Should Dr. Fauci be worshipped as God? A lot of good questions, and I know the answer to these is no. In fact, folks, this is coming down to a question of morality. Good versus evil. Freedom versus fascism, slavery. The Catholic bishop, I said bishop because it's funny. Catholic Bishop Strickland has labeled Hillary Clinton, quote, an evil woman, because she likened pro-life women, pro-lifers, she equated them to Islamic racists. Her lies and immorality need to be silenced, says the Catholic Bishop Strickland. Folks, they're silencing us while they spew their lies and venom everywhere. All right, Jolene says we got one more question that's popped up, and it is David. He says, hello, Hall. I'm here every day. Don't say much, but we are in a bullshit situation. Sick of it. Time to stand strong. David, here's my recommendation. Take it for what it's worth. It is through these hard times, and this is very important. It is through the hard and hardest of times that our mettle is tested as human beings, that they will try to break us and make us quit and give up and say, to hell with it, and accept the tyranny, to accept the yoke of slavery, right? Because you're tired of being beaten, literally beaten down and beaten on and taxed and punished. This is the time we do need to stand strong. It doesn't mean you run out in the street with your gun and start shooting at things. It means you need to stand strong, stand firm, be firm in your belief system, right? In your heart and in your mind. Know who you are, what you believe, and that it is correct, right, and do not waver from that. And continue to push, share the information out there. Share it, share it, share it. Continue to inform politicians of your opinion and what they need to do. And continue to teach the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Time to stand strong, damn right. Because they're trying to do the exact opposite. Weaken us, wear us down, destroy us, and make us willingly accept their tyranny as the new normal, as the great reset. Folks, chance favors the prepared mind. Godspeed, God willing, and the water don't rise too much. We'll get through another day, and we're going to see what comes next. Thank you again, guys.